Hey gang, Izzy here. Gotta do my sound check. Um, you'll notice there's no video still. I got the camera hooked up, but I'm having issues with the synchronizing audio to the camera, and it's really like off-putting. So yeah. So can you guys hear me, or am I just talking to the wind? Great. Hi Dan Rob, how you doing? So yeah, I got no hard plans today for what we're going to be doing. It just felt like painting, so I think I just picked some random images, got them right here. We're going to see what comes of them. I don't have anything in particular in mind. I just figured we had some fun today. Hi, Irina. All is good here. Just been working, stressing, you know. We had our tax delay here in the States. So I've got a whole bunch of things, including taxes, to do in the next couple of weeks. Exciting times for all. Oh, yeah, totally. Can't complain about that. Right now, I'm just playing with Mixer Brush. I actually forgot that this thing existed until I needed it for a project that I'm working on right now. So I'm trying to remember all the things that you can do with it. It's funny. So what I ended up using it for, I'm working on one of the paintings I'm working on right now is kind of a robotic looking device, and I got tired of doing all of the specular rendering and everything. So in order to kind of create, let me pull it back up and I'll show you real quick. I didn't want to mimic the or repaint all of the contrast drop off for the surface. So I used it just to make like piping and things like that. It's pretty easy for that sort of thing, but it's also just great for if you want to get interesting shapes and textures and weird colors in a thing. Like I like to grab something that's got like a lot of contrast and some weird shapes, and you can do some odd stuff with it. I've used it before for snakes, obviously. It's very easy to get a snake body going. So if you look at some of my paintings in the past, and I've had to do like snakes or naga type creatures, oh, it's fantastic. Very easy to get overlap. Oops, still in Mixer Brush. I've been doing so many for work. I've been doing so many like high population, battle scenes and very intricate work. It's very taxing. So I just feel like fooling around with my little break today. Yeah, I picked up 6 cards on this last wave because cost of living is pretty different in the States, and they didn't space out the due dates for them, so I had 6 cards due in the same amount of time as basically one, which I knew was a risk, but I did it to myself. So I'm just about done. I'm definitely late, but it's been hectic. Hi, Serge. Welcome. No. They ask you basically, do you want to do cards? And if so, how many? And then they'll try to match you with the amount of cards you ask for. I'd say I've gotten the amount I've asked for maybe 5 times in my career with them. Most of the time you get less. There's a lot of artists, so. Perfect. That's great. What I'm really digging right now in terms of the work that they're starting to show is that they're starting to do some more stylistic stuff again, which is really exciting. Yeah, so I have a camera attached, and I had to get this special capture card that goes external to the computer in order to use my GoPro. The problem is that I cannot, for the life of me, I seriously spent an hour before the stream today trying to get the audio of my speaking to sync with the damn video. And I was down in the milliseconds moving it back and forth, and I could not get it to match up. It's driving me nuts. And unfortunately, it's so disconcerting, that separation, that I think it would be actually distracting. So I decided to put it off one more week. I'm gonna do some research and see if I can find what's going on with that shit, because it's stupid. Oops. And I don't have a place to put the camera, so it's down low, so the painting face would be extreme. You would really enjoy that. God damn it. Come on now. Well, Serge, I mean, I understand your concern, but at the same time, I mean, no matter uh, what we do is it's a saturated field. There's always going to be competition. There's always going to be a lot of people. Um, it's just you gotta work on your voice. Really, I think that's the most important thing. Is whatever's uniquely you, bring that to the forefront. But you can never ever work in a vacuum where there's no competition. It's never going to happen. There are definitely hundreds of artists, and they take on new artists all the time. But even with that, I mean, they're still able to hire old guys like me and keep us on payroll. They're still able to bring in new. I mean, they're always just making new stuff. But I think part of this also goes to try not to think of, Wizards of the Coast or Pixar or whatever as the only end game for you. You know what I'm saying? There's tons and tons of work out there. It doesn't have to be just these specific companies. You know what I'm saying? I remember that was something that I always had to lecture students on when I was working in LA or teaching in LA. Was students were always wanting just to go to premier companies. They basically had no other things in mind. And then I had tons of students after they graduate ended up, working in advertising firms and things like that and having great jobs. But it just wasn't exactly what they had planned. And that's okay. Absolutely. One of the things that tends to happen also when we're talking about these premier, like the really top end companies, they kind of not all, but it does seem to be happening with studios, like Disney and things like that, where it's just such a sought after position, and everybody has they know that people are dying to get in there just because of, you know, the prestige, you know. So prestige studios can count on new blood all the time, and they can develop reputations for basically just burning out their veterans, and then they know that they can bring in new amazing skill and underpay them or overwork them, and it happens all the time. So certainly have prestige companies in your sites, but I would always bear in mind that they're not the only thing out there, and the abusive ones, and they are some for sure. Know They just know that how the system works, and they can take advantage of younger artists. Uh, Ironically, there is no thought process at all. What I'm doing right now is just sort of like looking for birds in clouds, you know? I'm just seeing shapes and then just picking them out. I'm not really doing anything in particular with any specific intent. Like, I'd say, well, I already painted over it, but I drew a shape like this pale shape here, and his eye was still there, so I just kind of kept it. But I mean, this is just playing. This isn't for any particular purpose. I do recommend that when you guys have free time to do stuff like this, to just play. It's so easy when you're working really, really hard on your portfolio, or like in my case where you're working for a client and you're just killing yourself. And it's so easy to forget that this stuff is fun too. So make time every now and then to just make silly stuff that isn't for anything. The fact is that Irina, you're not alone. A lot of artists, especially those that are trying to break in or that are just getting into their industries, they tend to push themselves so hard because, you know, that sort of personal demand for excellence, and then also just, you know, you got your imposter syndrome and all that stuff kicking in full scale. It's really easy to forget about this stuff, and you burn out. You can burn out so fast. I mean, basically everyone I know that has gone full tilt ends up burning out. I burned out. And I just, after doing the burnout, I remembered, like, oh yeah, I had to reteach myself to have fun with this. To turn off that brain that says, this needs to be for something, this needs to be for my portfolio. And I know none of you will actually listen to me right now, but there will become a point where you're like, ah, that's what he was talking about. I remember feeling invulnerable, and like there would never be a point where this would get old or where I'd get tired of, you know, drawing booby monsters and all sorts of weird shit. Turns out you can get tired of that. Schedule time, but the danger again, like, it's so weird, but you can turn. It's so easy to turn something like, okay, I just need to make something silly for a while. It's so easy to turn that into a self-assignment. It's almost like trying to master enlightenment. You cannot try to be enlightened. You know what I'm saying? It's impossible. So it's like tickling yourself. You gotta allow yourself to produce nothing. Just be on summer vacation for however long you're gonna give yourself, and lean into it and just allow it to be utter garbage and just play. Make shapes, mix colors, experiment. What I do like about this kind of thing, speaking of experimenting, is like, this is where kind of new fun techniques can tend to come from, is when you're just doing weird rando stuff, or an interesting idea might pop out. It's interesting because it will sometimes something can come of it that you can actually use later, but don't make that the purpose of doing it. Never do that, because you will corrupt your play. Man, Peter is so right. Morbacher, he's totally on point. Making stuff that you want to make, stuff that kind of tickles you in that special way, not like that, you monsters. Making that stuff is going to be so much more satisfying. You're going to tend to do it more often. It's going to drip with your own voice. It's so much better to do things that inspire you, or that are turning your crank. And this is another thing, I mean, in that same vein. So this happens a lot more often with gallery artists than concept or illustrators. But what will happen with them is they get caught up in being known for a specific kind of art. And then they can never break away from that. And then the thing that they once loved becomes a millstone around their neck. So that's another pitfall to avoid. Now we put it away. Whoops. Let's merge that down. Get it out of my way. I'm done playing with that. It's a cohesive idea on its own. Start something new. Creatives are especially guilty of that, Irina. Don't feel like you're alone. We all make tasks, especially if we have a specific goal, like what we're talking about. We make tasks out of everything. Making projects, like, that's another thing I think about. Like, we're always told, and I have given this advice, you know, make projects, right? Do a thing to completion. And it ends up becoming about, how can I monetize this? Like, oh, this needs to be a book or a comic or a screenplay, and that's a whole other ball of wax. I mean, you if you can come at it from the point of play and just let it be there, that's when those kinds of ideas can come forward. But if you try to go at it with the purpose of that in mind, you may come up with something, but it's going to stunt you. Oh, incidentally, I tried to add a playlist to the actual stream itself so that it's not just silent when I'm not talking. Is that playing? Do you guys hear any kind of music? And is it too loud if you do hear it? Do you like that better? I noticed when I was watching my streams on YouTube, I was like, oh, this is kind of boring. Okay, great. It's they're all from Incompetech, which is so great. Um, it's royalty free music even for commercial use, which is incredible. Like, what a generous guy, that composer. I know a lot of artists and streamers use his stuff, but I don't know where I was going with that. Oh, the songs are fairly short, so they will repeat. And then of course also you can listen to what I'm listening to through the Spotify thing. If that works. Did anybody ever check to see if that worked? coffee. Yeah, that just kind of came out of there, huh? I like the stories, you guys. These are great. Speaking of magic and stories, did you guys see my latest post on Twitter and Instagram? The goblins. People finally figured out that I've been painting the same goblins for numerous cards. Well, not finally. I've actually had it mentioned before, but it wasn't so publicly talked about. In my case, I can't help but try and tell stories. So even with when I got a bunch of goblin cards over the years, I started doing these two goofy characters that have just continued to show up in my work. And now there's enough that you can kind of put almost a sequence together for them. I can't make all of my older matronly women be all scary. one thing that I think happens a lot with me and my own work for pay, freelance stuff, is I get so caught up in detailing because, especially with things like wizards and concept art in general, the requirement for finished quality is so insanely high now that things that are sketchy and rough are very few and far between. So it's good to remind myself that that's actually something that can be done. I do enjoy painting really highly rendered things, but yeah. It's good every now and then. Cafe. There's something wrong with the structure of her head. I know it's very large, but I kind of like that. But there's something about the facial features that isn't working. And without getting too tight on it, I'm gonna just. Sometimes it can help. Let me reframe this so that it actually makes sense, and rather than just a stream of thought. So, if you were just to make like a couple of random marks, and you just did 3 marks like that, we have these. Our brains respond to these kinds of shapes, specifically 2 with 1, and we can assign like moods and feelings to those things, like sneaky, right, or goofy. And you could do this with any set of 3 marks like that. So knowing that you can do that, and that sketchiness, so much of the sketchiness style is just like doing little blips of marks for eyes and noses, you can move those around pretty easily and get a variety of facial expressions from them. So sometimes it's worthwhile to take a step back and change the mask of the face a little bit. And one of the easy ways to do that is just to do kind of quick marks and see if you can get a different emotion out of the moment. Instead of overly happy, maybe you can get a little bit of subtlety, like sweet but irritated, or angry but mollified. I mean, there's so many combinations of emotions and micro expressions that are available to us. It makes sense to sometimes, if something's not quite going, if you want to introduce a little melancholy or something like that, you can change out the face pretty quickly and easily just by doing some quick marks. Yeah, I already like this better, what I just did. The key, once you find something like this, is to be very careful not to lose the calligraphy of that little mark. Those little marks are genius. When you trust your mark making, when you learn to, and it'll take time, you from the get-go, in some ways even, your mark making is even better when you don't have a trained hand. The only difference that happens is once you have a trained hand, you also have a trained eye, and you can recognize when a mark is unique or valuable or is contributing that special thing. That's what that experience gives you. Excuse me, you always have the ability to make those marks. You just need to learn how to trust them and let them breathe. Yeah, we can do a facial expressions lesson. I'll have to, in order to do the facial expressions one, I will have to do like a preface facial anatomy lesson. That's definitely going to have to happen for an expressions. I like the button nose. I just need to change the placement a little bit. Sort of had a head anatomy one with fixing faces. Yeah, I think that was a pretty rough breakdown. I can't. It's so funny. There's so many now. I can't really remember what I covered in every single one. I need an archivist. Yeah, faces are fun. We'll just minimize. Too low. There we go. By the way, if you guys could do me a favor, I know I mentioned it before, but if you can do things like take the links from the YouTube archive of this Twitch and share them, that would mean the world to me. Just getting more viewers out here. All of this ultimately helps the Patreon and helps the Gumroad, so I can keep doing this stuff. I always forget to ask, but it would be great. Thank you, thank you. You guys already do so much. I always feel bad asking. You guys sit and hang out with me, chat. It's so awesome. Um, they're completely random, Serge. The references. Um, this one and this one are from my sort of reference. Just I found a random image and it inspired something. And then the rest, these ones are all from a portrait drawing page, and I just picked the first four that looked interesting. Again, this isn't meant today. I'm not really trying to do anything in particular. I'm just playing with colors and messing around. The goal today is to make a lot of mistakes. Have you guys ever tried large production paintings? In particular, what I'm thinking of is graffiti with spray cans. One of the things I learned, I did it for briefly for a few years in college. I had some friends that did a lot of productions, and one of the things that was interesting, I know I've mentioned before, and it's something I harp on a lot about, is creativity by virtue of parameters and working within the limitations of things. And one of the things I loved about working with spray cans was you couldn't get a sharp edge, or you could, but it was very difficult. And you had a limited color range. You couldn't really render outside of specific color combinations. And I always thought that was a good exercise. And in a lot of ways, having to do that size, like we're talking, measuring things in terms of meters or feet, it's very different than working on something where the working space, like my Wacom tablet, is only 8 inches by 5 inches or 6 inches. That's a very tiny space. So I guess what I'm saying is it's worthwhile to experiment with different dimensions and different mediums, because they're also going to do kind of what I'm trying to do now, which is force you to make different decisions, make you make mistakes, and then try and figure out how to get out of the trouble you've set yourself. Arr! Oh, lordy. Don't be afeared. I will guide you through the valley of darkness. We'll find a way to bring it back. Sorry, Arena. I'm the worst. I like that you saw pigtails. No, I just wanted to make him a little deeper in his predicament. I do watch some painting tutorials. Mostly I try and learn things that are not directly related to painting. So I'll watch 3D tutorials and things like that. If I'm watching painting tutorials, it's almost always for specific techniques that I recognize. Or thought processes. But I've been doing this long enough now that generally when I'm looking at when I just look at a finished painting, I can see a lot of the techniques that went into it. I know how the sausage is made. Yeah, I think that was kind of the idea, following this one a little bit. The milky guy. Usually when I have reference to the side, I'm not trying to draw the specific thing. It's just there's something about it that I found interesting. Yeah, it's a good one. I like color dynamics brushes where you do per tip color variation, and sometimes you can get some really cool color variety and simultaneous contrast with very minimal effort. You have good senses, I think. Oh. Sweet dreams. Oh God. Yes. This is why I spent all that money on college. Money well spent. Oh man. No, he doesn't need little claws. I think his little nipple feet are probably enough. Oh, these poor creatures I made. His little udder feets. Oh my goodness. I love my job. Give him a little sausagey body. Oh, Dan Rob. Oh, I don't think you can see the stream chat in the replays of this, but I gotta read this one. This is good. Dan Rob says, "I've always thought of art as kind of a superpower. We can turn simple thoughts into reality of sorts. Sometimes we use our powers for good, sometimes not." Oh, brother, you. Oh, my discography, if you will, is such a proof of that statement. Oh man. I have abused this power horribly. You guys can definitely tell that I've let you into my inner sanctum, as it were, because this is sitting like really late at night painting really absurd shit and just cackling my ass off to myself is actually something that I do with a weird frequency. So you guys are actually seeing, like, this is basically what I do on my own. Oh god. There is definitely something wrong with me. But it's not my fault. I was drawn this way. I don't like that little pinky bit I added. I consider it as a form of, like, I don't know, just entertaining myself. No one else is gonna paint this stuff for me. Probably for good reason. God damn this brush thing. Nope. That orange sun is a sign of his sainthood. This is alarmingly entertaining for me, guys. And now I'm spreading it to you. It's a disease of the mind. They're not wrinkly, at least. Oh, oh yeah, I'm doing more of this in the future. Teaching. Feh. I'm laughing so hard I'm basically weeping. My eyes are all wet. Have I ever thought about making an art book? I actually approached a couple of people about that before, but they said I need to have more followers on social media. I don't have enough, so it'll have to wait until I can get a bigger following. I think there may be nothing more adorable than wall-eyed creatures. They're so funny. Yeah, I think he's like a DMT cat or something. Oh, I know what I gotta do. This is definitely taken itself into psychedelic art realm, so I gotta reference that somehow. I do weirdly enjoy drawing uncomfortably fat little cute things. like I really don't know why. Too bad none of you guys is a therapist. So this is another fun little concept, thinking about it. When it comes to doing your foreplay illustrations, the only thing that really separates those from the things that you spend a great deal of time on and do for work is the great deal of time. So if you take something that is your absurd plaything and give it the detail and love that you would something that really requires that kind of input of time, like you would do for $1, it's going to come out looking like a finished for $1 piece, but it will have the playfulness of you having fun. And a lot of my work, especially my old stuff that was online in the early days of forums and stuff, fits that exact thought process, where I knew that I could render something to a finish that would make it look like a professional piece, but I would do it with things that I was just having a ridiculous amount of fun with. And the cool thing about that is that somehow, sometimes those things can end up in your portfolio, as I mentioned earlier, just by virtue of the fact that they're finished enough. But they're so strange, or they're so different, so unusual, so uniquely you, that those are the ones that people tend to remember. And I remember I would have some pieces that were just out of the world or just ridiculous, like this, in my portfolio. And these were the things that recruiters wanted to talk about, almost always. They were like, whoa, what's going on here? Explain this. And then you get to have a laugh, and like the stories that you tell in your interviews and things like that can really help endear you to potential hirers. Being remembered is half of the battle. Being remembered for good things, ideally. We remember the bad things too. There's some pretty funny stories about that. I'm telling you, it's so, voice is so important. Having something different to say that's unique is so important. And it doesn't even need to solve anything. Like, this solves nothing. This is absurdity refined. But that is the voice, and that's okay. If you let it happen, you can make some really interesting stuff. And then in terms of actually getting work, it can help quite a bit. Now, I'm going to say all that with the caveat that you need to be able to, if you're going to put crazy weird shit in your portfolio, you need to be able to talk your way out of it. You need to be able to turn it into something that's goofy and fun for everybody to enjoy. If you are not doing that, if you end up coming out of it creepy or too creepy, that can work against you. So bear that in mind when taking my advice. And as I've always said before, just ignore everything I say. I'm just some weird old windbag. You can't trust me. I mean, of course you can't trust me. Look at the shit I paint. That makes me laugh so much. I say old in the veteran terminology. How about that? It's got to have a little kitty rump going on there. One of the things I learned from Charlie Wen, actually, who was the lead concept artist at Sony Santa Monica before I got there. I got to meet him and got to know him, but I didn't get to work with him a whole great deal. He left right as I was coming in. One of the things I learned from him was not directly from him, but from looking at his artwork, because I was privy to all of the concept art and the things done internally. And when he was doing stuff like I just did, where he's resizing and pasting things back in, he didn't worry too much about the edges of the lasso. Once it was there, he would just paint over it. So there's still edges in there, but by leaving those little chunky bits every now and then, it can create some fun artifacts that lend, I don't know, just some visual interest to it. As long as you're subtle about it, you can hide it with paint strokes just a little bit, but a little hard edge, weird cut here and there can make for interesting shapes. Funny, this out of all of these, this one is turning into the most finished final. Ah. Nah, too much. Oh, guys. Oh, it's the little things. Udder limbs have to be smooth. That's the requirement. They're not that smooth. I gotta smooth out these the bottom edges a little bit more so that the contrast drop off is correct. I think this is one of those cursed images that just like go straight to prison, do not pass go. Oh. I think it's just instinct. They gotta be more pinky. No, that one's gratuitous. You know what it is? It's the wrinkles. Can't have those. This image is so haunted. You're all doomed. That's because he's watching as you sleep. He's making sure you have the goodest dreams. His name is Mr. Spooter, and he watches over you as you sleep. You want some odd hairs here and there. Let's see what we can do about that. Like the pupa of one of those Sphinx cats. I've been painting this for too long, but I can't stop. I'm addicted to it now. Now it's part of me. Your hatred feeds me. I don't know. I can't decide. What do you guys think? Maybe it should just be like a non-diegetic sun. I don't know. You like it with the yellow? Okay. That's all the art direction I need to go with it. Oh my goodness. I gotta give him a little, just a little bit of cellulite. It's a little bit. Make him relatable. Oh, gang. I'm sorry. Sorry, not sorry. I think I might put something on his belly, but the fact is I've had so much fun hanging out with you guys and painting. I've overgone my time a little bit, and I got to get back to work and get back to the grind. So, had fun hanging out, and we shall do this again soon. 1 week. I'm still wanting to do a second show every week, but it's just been crazy the last few weeks. So, anyway, we will hang soon. Hit me up with any questions, recommendations on the Discord. We're going to be doing the new lesson. I got to film that next week. So get in your opinion on what you'd like to see now. And yeah, as always, paint smart, paint sexy.
Hi there. I'm Izzy, a professional writer, concept artist, and illustrator. I've taught painting for a dozen years or so, on and offline. Many of your favorite illustrators and designers have studied with me or under me and have gone on to teach in their own right. You're here because, like they did, you want to learn to paint realistically for illustration or concept art. Well, worry not. You're in the right place. Grab a seat. I want you to join me as I explain all the aspects of image making in extremely digestible and clear monthly lessons. Not through the lens of silly how to paint hair or eye demos. That shit is carnival tricks. And you're not really learning anything except an exact way to render one thing in one manner. This is painting mysticism at its worst. Watching these kinds of exploitative lessons won't help you level up with your understanding. Sure, now you can paint sparkly hair, but what if you want to paint a dragon, or figure out how to render a sea of fire, or depict a one-eyed transgender space marine dying in the vacuum of space? Painting and image making are tools of communication, and can be learned by anyone willing to put in some time. Like grammar is for language, light, color, and form literally follow a formula. Painting well is not a matter of chicken bones, zombie crackers, and the ever-dismissive concept of talent. Learning with my series, Izzy's Logic of Light and Color, will give you the tools and understanding so you can analyze light and form in reality and bring it to life in your work. Using this simple system I have distilled will help you harness your art to share your ideas as you've always intended. When we are children, we all draw in symbols. Symbols for our house, our hands, the sun, the grass, our pet lobster. As we grow into artists, we must learn to throw away symbols and begin to draw and paint what it is we actually see. And as we grow further, we learn to paint beyond what we see and what is actually there. Until finally we move beyond this and learn to trim away what is actually there so we voice only what we want. With me, you're going to have to buckle in and maybe take some pain meds, because I'm going to rip out your normal person's eyes and replace them with a painter's eyes. I'm going to restructure how you see and how you understand what you're seeing. I'm going to turn you into a painting machine. Truly, anyone can learn to paint realistically if they can both determine what they're seeing or imagining with basic and straightforward rules. Once you understand the mechanics of light, color, and form in reality, you will have the capacity to paint anything you can see or imagine realistically. After that, the real fun begins. Here are some of the ways you can join me and master the logic of light and color. The very first lesson of my series is totally free on my YouTube channel. In that lesson, I give you the 3 primary rules of light that are the very foundation of painting and understanding light itself. If you do nothing else to make your painting mastery easier, at least watch this amazing little lesson. It will do more for your basic understanding of light than just about any tutorial you can find. When you're ready to get deeper and you feel like you have those first rules figured out, allow me to utterly blow your mind with the next episodes available on Gumroad and ArtStation. As we go deeper into the rules underlying the logic of light and color, I carefully and simply explain important and interesting elements. From beginner to pro, there is an amazing amount of information available. Each concept has been distilled into the clearest explanation you're likely to find anywhere. Like episode 2, where we cover the atmospheric effect and how that relates to light, scale, and distance of objects in reality, and how to render it. Or episode 3, where I hand over the ultimate key to controlling value in your paintings. Episodes 5 through 8 are all about rendering materials. Want to understand the logic behind rendering metal, leather, hair, transparency, damn near anything. I even cover the logic behind painting special effects like fire, neon, or lightsabers in later episodes. The lessons just get deeper and more detailed as I build on the foundations covered in preceding episodes. The 10th gives you the most important rule of composition you'll ever learn to keep your images interesting. The next few episodes cover important painting techniques like my edge control ninjutsu or simplification with the large to small system. We dip a toe in color theory, devote a few episodes to finishing full-blown illustrations utilizing the techniques we've learned so far. Some episodes, like the lighting game or Advanced Exercises 1, the shirt, present cheap, valuable, and practical exercises to give you explosive growth in your development. Episodes 22 through 25 cover painting and illustration, just like I do for Magic the Gathering, from assignment and inception to signing the painting at the end. Each one is full of tips, knowledge, everything to make working as an illustrator easier. Did you enjoy learning how to paint basic materials? Metal, wood, and such? I got 3 whole episodes devoted to the intricate logic behind painting different kinds of skin. After that, more lessons devoted to pumping life into your portraits and original methods for accurately drawing faces out of your head. From fundamentals to photo bashing, Gumroad and ArtStation have every lesson I create available for purchase a la carte. But here's an even better way to learn with me. Stay current with my latest lessons on Patreon for the lowest price available. Monthly support gets my student that month's lesson, a critique or paint over of their finished work, a discount code for 25% off the entire Gumroad archive, and access to the Logic of Light and Color Discord community, where we plan future lessons, share knowledge, and learn together as a team. The absolute best method is to join my Patreon classroom at the Student Plus tier, where you'll get everything I just mentioned and a free episode from the archive every month to accelerate your mastery at your own pace. You've decided to take control of your painting and master Izzy's logic of light and color. Now it's up to you to choose the path that's best for you. I'll see you on the flip side. Paint smart, paint sexy.
Okay.